Hey there, thank you so much for listening to Something Super Spiritual. My name is Jeffrey Peck, and I am a psychic medium. If you are seeking conversation with loved ones on the other side, or discussion about spirituality, life after life, and anything in between, join me as we discuss all things spirit. We are collectively experiencing a spiritual awakening right now and recognizing that we are much, much more than we once believed. We don't die, and life doesn't end. We are eternal spiritual beings living in this crazy 3D virtual world of existence. Let's talk about it. Britta Nicole, welcome to Something Super Spiritual. I'm so happy to have you here. You guys, Britta is a referral, a friend through a friend. My friend Carrie Alderucci and Britta had a mutual exchange a month or so ago, and Carrie got a hold of me right away and said, you have to talk to Britta. You have to get Britta on your show. And I was so excited to know that she actually said the same thing to you, because you reached out to me before I reached out to you. And that was like last week. So here we are, and this is happening so quickly. So I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, my first time meeting Carrie was on screen. And so it was exciting to connect to her son, as probably many of you might know his story and her story. And so it was just fantastic to make that connection. And at the time when I was making the connection with her, I was doing a gallery reading, and I didn't even know she was a medium until after the gallery reading was over. So that was really neat.
Yeah, for you guys listening that have been around since last year, Carrie was on episode 3. Carrie Alderucci wrote the book Demystifying Mediumship, What Makes a Medium. And my story is included in this collection of, I think, 17 mediums. My experience with Carrie, my very first day at Arthur Findlay, her son came through for me as well. So changed my life in ways I can't even begin to explain. And here we are, fast forward today, and here's Britta. So we want to know about Britta. I love what you're doing. Britta works with Helping Parents Heal, which is an organization for parents that have lost children, but they call them something star parents, gold star parents?
Shining light parents.
Thank you. Shining light parents. Parents that have gone through the unspeakable, I mean, just horrifying experience of losing a child. I'm not a parent, and I just can't even fathom that. So thank you for what you do for these parents. And I've referred so many people to Helping Parents Heal. So Britta, let's start it with you. Tell us a little bit about your journey. Have you been connected to spirit in this way since the crib, or is this later in life? What's your story?
Yeah, so great question. You know, throughout my life as a child, I was really intuitive. I was really psychic. I was that kid in school who knew who was going to win the spelling bee. I knew what the test score was going to be before the teacher handed it back to me. So I always had this inner knowing from a psychic standpoint, from my own intuitive standpoint, and it really grew over the years. I never really thought ever anything about mediumship, or even really what it was. I didn't know that term. When I was 15, something I don't really talk about much, but I did have a near-death experience. And at the time, I didn't know it was a near-death experience, but I believe that was the catalyst to help me start looking and searching for more answers of spirituality. I was raised Catholic, but not strict Catholic. So I always knew that there was a presence of spirit guides. I had a big belief in that. But after this near-death experience, I just started searching for more and more. And it really wasn't until my 30s, after I was done having children, that I actually crossed paths with a woman at a workshop who studied near-death experiences at San Diego State. And that's all she studied. And so I had the chance to ask her and share with her my story. And she said, absolutely, that's what you had. And that's it. So that was just kind of confirmation from that point. However, the way the mediumship actually started was I was in that workshop with this woman, and one of the activities, it was just a spiritual enlightening workshop and not specific for mediumship, but one of the activities was how everybody's a medium. And so they paired us off, and I thought, you know, I'm psychic, but I don't know about mediumship. And the first connection I made was with another class participant, and her adult daughter had come through with blaring colors. It was incredible. And that woman just said, you have it, you know what you're doing. And I'm like, I don't know what doing? So that just kind of started from that point on, that I started searching. And so, yeah, that was really the beginning of starting to dive more in and figuring out who could I go study with? What was this all about? I was just a newbie in all of it. But I never thought I'd be where I'm at today, which is professionally doing it and only doing mediumship in my work.
Wow. Yeah. 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 So how long have you been doing this professionally then?
So I started out professionally right around like 2016. And, I always try to tell people, start slow when you're going, because you don't know where the journey is going to take you. And I actually did about 8 to 9 months of no charge readings, just to get the experience. I had a full website going and people could come and work with me. And it gave me an opportunity to see, what was I learning from the spirit world, and what was this all about? And then I really just transitioned from there slowly. I was working full time. And then slowly, I think it was probably around 2018, 19, I pulled back from work. And a whole nother aspect of me is I'm a mom. I've got 3 kids. They're all young, school-aged kids. And we've moved a lot. So we've lived all over the world. And so I'm coming at you from London right now. And I'm able to take my work wherever I go.
Yeah.
So
yeah, true.
Yeah.
I get that. I did the same thing. I did free readings for, I'd say, almost a year and a half to 2 years. And I think it's very important as well, when you are headed this direction, really learning how your communication works, because it's a little bit different for all of us. When we talk to each other who do this work, it's really interesting. Like, oh, I experienced it this way. You experienced it that way. I mean, it's similar, but it's different, but it's similar, but it's different. And I do agree. It's very important to understand how this works within us. And I agree, taking it slow.
Yeah.
Like for me, my clairaudience, I didn't understand the clairaudience because, well, I had expectations and demands that I didn't even realize I had, because I had friends who literally heard voices on the outside of their head.
Wow.
And when I was like, well, I don't hear voices on the outside of my head. And then I heard others will say, well, no, that a lot of people hear it on the inside of their head. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm working at it and I'm working at it. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't hear voices on the inside of my head either. But what I realized all along, my clairaudience works. It's like words and phrases and paragraphs of words just like plop into my head. And so that's how it works for me. And that's what I mean by getting to understand how your own clairs work.
And I can agree with you more. I had similar experience in the sense that I thought, to be a medium, you would see the visit of your grandfather at the foot of your bed or your grandmother floating on the ceiling. And I never had those experiences. So I just never, ever thought that was part of my journey. And I learned later on that objective mediumship, which is seeing the soul outside, like looking at you right now, I'm looking, I could see outside, and I'm not an objective medium. Doesn't mean it wouldn't open up down the road, but less than 5% of all mediums are actually objective mediums.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought that too.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I've hoped for it. I'm like, when is it going to happen? Bring it on. But then I wonder, like, if I did see it, how would I react? Would I be like,
Yeah.
what is
exactly?
Okay. So now here we are, you're in London. And where did Helping Parents Heal fall into your journey?
Yeah, great question. So it was probably closer to around 2017-ish, 2018. I was working with a Facebook group that I work closely with online, and we would meet every week and we would work on development, and some were mediums and some weren't. And I had never really brought through a child, and I thought it would be a very intense experience, and I was a bit nervous about it. And one of these sessions, I actually, unbeknownst to me, had brought through a woman who's now one of my closest friends, who's also a medium, had lost a son. And the evidence was just astounding as he was sharing himself with me, through me. And that's really kind of where it started. And from there, I just started really connecting. And as I went professional, I offered myself up to Helping Parents Heal. And Helping Parents Heal is an amazing international nonprofit organization to help parents, and anything that a medium can do to help or give a talk or do gallery readings, it's done. And that's really kind of where it started. They're not that old. They've only been around for about a decade. And so back in 2018, they were still kind of in their infant stages. And sadly, it's a group that continues to grow as life continues to go forward and move forward. Everyone's losing, people have crossed over in that sense. And so that's really, it was a very organic approach. It just happened that I was able to start connecting with people and helping parents heal. Yeah.
For those listeners that have lost children and they are, in the throes of grief and questioning, and, could you talk a little bit more about what the organization does for the parents and how? I know you said that, they give talks and whatnot, but what could somebody who's listening expect if they were to look up Helping Parents Heal? What would it do for them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's a non-religious group. All religions are welcome. Their motto is to be, hopeful, helpful, and healing, and it's a process. And so everybody's at a different place on their grief journey, and it's a collective group of parents from all walks of life, children of all ages. They have children who crossed right at birth, all the way to children who were young adults, older adults. It's all different variants, and so they actually have chapter meetings and they have chapter support groups within your local area. So I would be stunned if in the person's local area that was interested in reaching out to Helping Parents Heal didn't have a chapter group near them, because there's multiple ones in every state. There's chapter groups, and they're countrywide now. I mean, they're in Switzerland, they're in the United Kingdom, there's so they're all over. And so they meet online. They also meet in person. And then the way that I'm able to give back, because I'm in London right now, is they will have different opportunities where you can go and work with the group. In January, I worked with a group of parents who lost children death by suicide. There's also a special needs group that I've worked with in the past for parents who have lost children that had special needs. So there's a different journey oftentimes with different parents in what's happened in their own, respective lives with their children. And so it's just an absolutely beautiful, uplifting organization. These parents get together and they love to share stories and the signs that their kids bring them and how they can communicate with them and talk with them. And it's really helping parents build that relationship.
Wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. I love what you just said, because I speak about that often as well. The bond with our loved ones doesn't end when they cross over. The bond can continue to grow. It's just different because their body's not here, but they're still with us.
Absolutely.
And I have, my experience with that was I lost my grandmother in 2002, and we were really, really close. I was always, sensitive. I knew that there had to be more. I didn't think that death was, ashes to ashes, dust to dust kind of thing. I didn't really think much of it, but I just knew. There was just a knowing I had. So after she passed, over the next, 3-4 years, I always said that, I talk to my grandma all the time. And it's like our relationship has changed, but it's grown. And people didn't quite understand what I meant, or maybe they just, thought I was a little wacky, talking to my grandma, believing that she's listening. But no, but she does. They do. They absolutely do. I love that. With respect to the organization, what has been your experience witnessing these parents as you're giving a demonstration? And I imagine you're giving a demonstration to quite a few people. And as we do with gallery readings, with a number of people in front of us, we're giving evidence to show who's with us, who's here, the parents to stand up. I imagine that it has to be pretty emotional. And
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, I
yeah,
was going to say, I think emotional in the sense that there's also a lot of joy. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
these parents are so excited, and vibration is everything, as you know, when it comes to mediumship. And so when you get a collective group of shining light parents together, they just already vibrate so high. It's incredible. And yeah, there are a lot of parents on the Zoom sessions. And the nice thing about Zoom is the parents from all over the world can join in,
yes,
that are part of helping parents heal in the comfort of their own home. So as the medium goes to demonstrate, the evidence has to be pretty specific
yeah,
in
yeah.
order for you to find the parent that's in, the sea of hundreds of parents. And every medium, as you know, works differently. But when that, sometimes I like to call it, it's like a spirit off. You might have a soul that steps forward, and it's amazing how much information that can be so specific. You still have three moms who can take everything.
Yeah.
And the kids know, it's almost like I just did a demonstration 2 nights ago, and it's like the kids know that here's their opportunity to step forward, and they're all figuring out, how are we going to connect to our mom? How are we going to, I almost want to say push forward to the front, but they almost piggyback sometimes with
Yes.
that information. And you'll see time and time again, these mothers will say, that's exactly my son. That's my son too. And the intelligence of spirit is just incredible for them to pick such specific things that they're showing, all the way down to one time I had two women who could take all the information, and their son showed me that they recently had taken their wallet and dropped all their coins on the floor by accident, and both women could still take it. And I thought to myself, what are the chances,
Yeah.
of that happening? So it's really uplifting. The demonstrations are really uplifting for the moms. I did one on Mother's Day. It's just beautiful to be able to give something back in the best way possible. And it's you walk away as the medium just so, uplifted and joyful about all the love that you've been able to spread. But yes, you do have the recipients in all different stages on their journey.
Yeah.
So
And thank you. You must be psychic, because that's exactly where I was going in my head, talking about the emotion, because you do have the people that are in the throes of that horrifying grief, right? But then you have the parents who are a little bit further along in their grieving process, right?
Mhm.
And have spent some time with helping parents heal, and watching a lot of these events happen, and their grief transforms into hope and joy, even if their loved one doesn't come through for them in that particular event. Witnessing all of this happening for everybody else is so healing for everybody there. And
Absolutely.
then and I love that transformation from the pain of grief to the hope within grief, and the joy within grief, and towards the end of those events. It's just so beautiful.
It is. And I think the parents, as they're able to come together collectively and share similar experiences, they realize their kids are still right here. They're around them every second of the day. These parents do not walk this journey alone. And that is one of the biggest things that I try to stress whenever I'm connecting to a shining light parent, is you are not alone on this. The children show time and time again what's going on in the parents' lives. The evidence is just amazing at times that they're showing them they're not alone, and they're supporting them in everything that they can do on this journey. So it takes another level of making that relationship with anybody that's lost somebody, child, parent, wife, any of that sort. It takes a special commitment and time, and it doesn't happen overnight. And I think if anything, the impatience, everybody wants to snap their fingers and say, okay, I want to talk to my loved one. And I try to tell people, it's not like picking up the telephone. You have to listen through your heart. You have to listen in different ways. But as we continue to be open to it, more and more shows itself, because everything is divinely timed.
Oh,
everything, every sign, everything.
That is the absolute truth. Oh, you just said a mouthful, and I had so many directions to go with everything you just said. Speak to those who are listening regarding, actually, hold on. I want to go back and talk about one of my favorite things. You brought up that people are not alone. They're never alone. Their kids, their loved ones are with them here on out. What I was thinking is, one of my favorite things within readings is when the children, the loved ones, the parents, the spouses, whomever, start talking about things that are happening in their life right now. And it's, for me, it's like, it's amazing to give the evidence of who this person is, what they loved in life, their personality, their idiosyncrasies, their little quirks, right? But when we start talking about things that are happening in the sitter's life today, it just like takes that to a whole new level within themselves. And it like raises this level of, oh, wow. It just shows them that they really are still part of their lives. They're not missing out. And I love that part.
100%.
And then now to fast forward, how they are always, trying to give us messages. Talk a little bit about what you have experienced in the children showing these parents. I've been trying to get a hold of you. These are the messages I've been giving you. Talk a little bit for the people who have been questioning. Yeah. Are they there? Are they listening? Am I getting messages? I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. Please talk about that.
Everything is just amazing. The kids, I mean, they vibrate so high, and they want to connect to their parents and make it easy for them and show them. I just had a woman last night who had lost a daughter, and the daughter was showing me squirrels. And she said to me clairaudiently, she said, I've been sending my mom squirrels, but she doesn't want the squirrels anymore. So I'm sending her hummingbirds now. And so I repeated this to the mom, and she's just laughing in stitches. And she says, oh my gosh, that's true. I knew the squirrels were coming from her, and I just was seeing too many. And I said, stop with the squirrels. And I said, well, now you've got the hummingbirds. And she said, you're right. I've been seeing hummingbirds. And so it's that kind of moment where, how else can you explain? How can you explain that this is even possible? I had a mother earlier today from Serbia. I had no idea that's where she was from. And her son told me what he called her in their native language. And I was stunned, and I was pronouncing it. And I said, he calls you this. It was like mamika. And she stopped, and she said, yes. And she said, how do you know that? And I said, because he's telling me this right now. And it was just the most incredible moment. And at the end, because I don't let people talk too much during the session, but at the end, she said, I have to tell you, she said, my son always called me that. And it makes me feel so good to know that he's right here. And I said, that's when I said, where are you from? And what was the language? And we had the formalities, but the evidence it doesn't stop. I just had a gallery reading people can find on YouTube a couple days ago. And I had a young girl that had crossed over, and she was talking all about going to the lake, this family vacation, going to the lake. And I tell people, it's like I have a GoPro on my chest, and I'm like looking down at like the feet of her, and I can see her feet on the shore. And I said, it's definitely a lake. It's not a beach. And the mom said, I just rented and reserved a boat for the lake yesterday. I can't believe that. That's just amazing. I love hearing that my daughter's going to be with me on this family vacation. I mean, you can't make it up. No, it's incredible. No. The evidence is just astounding that the children share and really all the loved ones. But you really hit home when you say they want to hear what's going on today. The memories are beautiful, but when you're in a deep stage of grief and you're trying to get through every day and you're trying to wrap your head around, how is this even possible? I didn't know this was possible my whole life. Nobody ever taught me this. How is it that my kid is right here? Am I holding them back? Are they still growing? Are they doing things that they want to do? So there's a million questions. Sometimes I'll get questions of who's taking care of my child, and so you have to meet the sitter where they're at. And intuitively, I think as mediums, we all know intuitively where the sitter is at, because the soul and spirit knows exactly where their loved one is at. And that's that trust in the spirit wholeheartedly, that the information that they're sharing is designed exactly for their loved one that's receiving it.
Oh, so true. And that's another thing I talk about all the time, the intelligence to spirit that we literally cannot wrap our mortal brain around. We just can't. There are things that we think we need, answers that we think we want, but spirit knows there's other things that have to come first. And and then what's so amazing about that is after those answers come that spirit knows is necessary first, the people are generally like, oh, now I get it. I understand why that had to happen first. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So and a lot of times we don't know the whole story. We're just sharing that information. There's so many layers to what's being shared, right? I mean, we could probably sit for hours and talk after a session with a client to hear how it's all placed in different ways. And a lot of times, I'm sure you notice this too, sometimes evidence comes through and it has like a double or triple layered meaning. So you see it as one way, the parent or any of the sitters can accept it, and then they say it also means this and this, and it's like, wow, the intelligence, amazing.
Oh, the one piece of evidence that gives 3 different meanings is just, yeah, it's like, wow.
Awesome. Do we call that a triple?
Yeah, there it is. So the questions that you were rattling off earlier, who's taking care of my child? Are my children still growing? Are they doing what they want to?
Great
What's
questions.
your response? What are your responses to those?
Great questions. Well, the spirit world are my greatest teachers. So I only can speak on what I have learned from those in spirit. Even though I have mentored and tutored with others, until I have actually experienced it myself through evidence and validation, only then can I express it. So I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of a story. I just had a couple nights ago, and their little baby had crossed over prematurely, and it was sharing with me that its mom had a cupcake. And she hadn't eaten this cupcake. So the baby was showing me this cupcake, and it was showing me, I want you to eat the cupcake. You need to eat the cupcake. And all of a sudden she's just laughing about it. And I said, oh, and he's telling me he prefers vanilla over chocolate. And that was about it. And so fast forward 2 days later, and she sends me an email and she says, I want to let you know, this was my son's birthday 2 days ago, and his cousin had baked cupcakes in his honor and put his name on top of the cupcake. The mom was away on a vacation with the dad in honor of the son's birthday to not be around. And so they got a photo sent to them of the cupcake. So that's why she couldn't eat the cupcake. So the intelligence, and this was the tiniest of souls, this was the tiniest of little souls. And so there is no age in the afterlife, but what I typically see is usually around the age that they pass. And then many times they will actually show me that they're growing. And, I've had clients where the soul passed under the age of 1, and they're showing me themselves at 10 years old, and sometimes it confuses the recipient, and they're like, well, my loved one didn't pass at that age. And so we have to talk about, okay, well, let's see what they're showing us and where's the evidence in this. And a lot of the times it's the evidence of how they're all around and what's currently going on in their life. Or they'll talk about, the littlest of babies, the souls will talk about what color the nursery was going to be. They'll talk about the month that the conception happened, the age that they would be today. So it's really amazing. As far as the question of who's taking care of my child, a lot of times the children will show me, if they're very young, who else is around them. The grandparents, maybe it's an uncle, it could be anybody of that sort, but there's not a need to be taken care of in the way that we think of it in the human form.
Agreed.
So that's a human, moment, I guess, to say.
I absolutely agree. When children do cross over, they aren't here. Children are literally helpless for the first number of years of their life, right? It's not like that when they go to spirit. In fact, I just had a reading the other day where I had this father coming through, but there was another person with him, and I sensed a mature person, but presented as like a 10-year-old. And I said, I need to let you know that he's with the boy, but this boy feels much more mature than a boy. I know it's been a long time, but this is just an identifying factor. And she goes, yeah, his brother died when he was 9 years old. And when my dad was, 14. So it was just a way for him to show that he's with his brother, and also to also show that, age is really, it's more often than not just an identifying factor. So we know who we have, and then and then they just carry on. It's so beautiful. Yeah. It's so beautiful. So within your experience within these galleries, can you tell us, describe an experience where you really literally were just left in awe? You would like to witness that healing happening in front of you, from despair to the end of a reading where it just lifted this person's energy, their spirits, their hope in a way that is just, to witness that is so miraculous.
Yeah. I can tell you on a one-to-one reading, you really get a chance to experience that. I had a woman who had never gone to a medium before about a month ago, and she came to me for the first time. And I could tell right away she was new in her grief journey, and she had a young adult son that had crossed. And all these stories I share, I have permission to share, just so you know. And one of the things he was talking about was his connection with mom. And he was showing me, and I was literally feeling it at the same time, that he gave her tingles in her chin cheek region. No, I can't take that. And I said, gosh, that's what he's showing me. And she says, no, and I haven't felt anything from him. And I said, he's telling me it's coming. I said, you're going to see this. You're going to feel this in the next couple of days. I got an email 3 days later, and she said, oh my gosh, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had all these tingles exactly as my son said, all over my chin and my cheek. How is this even possible? Is this real? Like, her mind was totally stunned, amazed, confused all at once. Like, how is this possible? And so I think there's so many layers just in that example, because the intelligence of spirit can see things. They can see things further out. And also, as a medium, the sense of time can be a challenge. You know, I felt like she had already experienced that.
Yes.
And I always try to explain to my recipient and to my sitter that past, present, and future here does not exist in the afterlife. So it's very common and normal for the medium to be off by a few days or a little bit, you know, in that sense. But I know that that was an amazing step in her healing journey, to have come full circle with something that she had been told only a few days prior, and then to actually experience it. There's no other way to have known that that was going to happen. I can also say, in a gallery session, one very recent one that I had, this mother with her daughter, the daughter kept showing herself to me in the kitchen. And I immediately could just feel, you know how sometimes as a medium, you get filled with emotion. Like, you almost like have to like fan yourself, because you can feel the intensity of the energy. You want to start crying.
Yes.
There's just this huge intense. So I had been connecting to this mother with other pieces of evidence. And then all of a sudden, the daughter brings me to the kitchen. And I said, yeah, she's like showing me, she's like at counter height. And it's like you walking into the kitchen, and all of a sudden it's like you see her. And the mother was stunned. And she said, it wasn't me in the kitchen. It was my father. He called me yesterday to tell me that he walked into the kitchen and my daughter was sitting at the table. So I didn't have it exact, but I had it pretty darn close. And that's how it works, you know. And she's, you know, and so you could just see on her face the joy of just, her daughter knew.
Yeah.
Of course she knew. Her daughter's not just around mom, she's around the grandfather too.
Yeah.
And so that's actually one of the few times I've ever seen an apparition be talked about in a reading, but that was pretty rare, pretty amazing. Amazing communicator their daughter was. Yeah.
You know, that's really, you said amazing communicator. And that brings me to my experience with kids. You know, there are some people in spirit who are quieter than others. And I'm talking about adults. And I have not experienced that with kids. The kids have been amazing communicators.
All of them. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know, I'm having a little aha moment right now, because I hadn't thought of it that way yet. But why do you think that is? That's interesting.
I think partly when it comes to parents with helping parents heal, all the kids are together all the time. They're around their parents. They're not through me, but there have been stories that kids have met in the afterlife and through validation with different mediums. The stories just continue to unfold and unfold, and it's just stunning. I think that as a child or as a young soul who's passed prematurely, there's this desire to really connect and show your parent that you're all around, you know, and they keep it in such a forefront in front of them. It's so real. It's so tangible, you know, and I don't I do believe, though, that regardless of age, whether it's a young child or it's a spouse in spirit, who lived 60 years, there is a level of having to learn. They've watched the medium, they watch how the medium works. The sitter might think that they just picked you by choice, but it's really the loved one that's coming through in spirit that has chosen the medium and has found that way, to get them to that medium so that they can work with that medium. Like you said, everybody kind of works a bit differently as a medium. Yes. So do the spirits. Some might be more clairsentient and maybe don't come to medium Britta, and they might go to you, so who knows? But they're all amazing communicators, and they all are shining lights themselves. It's not just the parents, the kids are shining lights too.
And it makes me think too that, the childlike attitude, the childlike wonder, that childlike excitement, that where, when kids get excited, they just want to pop because they're just so excited to be there and to talk and to experience and to express. I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think all loved ones too, some of them, have said they've waited decades to connect to their loved one. And then you find out when the reading ends, their dad was crossed 30 years ago, so again, no sense of time, but they're just, as excited too. But absolutely.
Speaking of that, I get that question all the time. And it's my most difficult, most frustrating question to answer. When people do come to us and after it's said and done, so-and-so didn't come and they were really hoping to hear from so-and-so, when they say why, where are they? What is your answer?
Great question. I always try to encourage people to set the intention of who they want to connect to. But at the end of the day, the spirits, the souls are deciding what's needed in the heart, what's needed for you. And we may not realize it on a cognizant level, but they know exactly with their intelligence what our soul needs in that healing process.
Yes.
I had a woman a few years ago who was so disappointed that she didn't connect to mom, and it was dad that came through. Yep. And it was an incredibly healing session from dad. She came back a few weeks later, dad came through again, but in the middle of the reading, mom stepped in. And so there was a plan in place that we don't have control because we're just the conduit, we're just the channel of sharing the information. But I do feel that as people spiritually evolve, they get a better understanding that their soul is getting exactly what it needs to help them on their healing journey.
Yeah. And you know what? And we refer back to, in that case, the intelligence to spirit. They know what we need before we know what we need. No matter Absolutely. How strongly we feel like we need this, or that.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to that, how quickly we want to learn how to connect, even as developing mediums, why isn't it coming faster? Why am I not clairaudient? Why am I not strong in my clairvoyance? And I think we live in a society now, I like to call it my Insta generation. Everything's instantaneous. You can order food wherever you live now. You can go onto social media, all the videos, nobody even wants to watch, things with my kids don't know what commercials are, so there's that instant gratification. And we have to learn that spiritually speaking, the awakening is a process, and it's a process that's divinely timed.
Yep. Agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
So with your experience with spirit and delivering readings and messages, what is your experience with the divine? What is your experience with respect to, like, what happens when we pass?
Great question. So I have had the amazing experiences with those in spirit showing me their transitions. I have seen hundreds of transitions with validating evidence that I never would have thought would be possible even 15, 20 years ago. I didn't know people could have different transitional experiences. And it really started, again, really organically. I had a woman's spouse in spirit, and he kept showing me that he would look at the leaves. When he crossed over, there were all the trees, and he kept talking about all these trees, and he could see with like X-ray vision the leaves, the veins of the leaves. And he's going on and on and on and on about this. And the woman's just nodding her head. And I'm thinking, oh boy, I don't know where I'm going with this, but okay. So the whole reading ends. And at the very end of the session, when she is telling me more and validating, she says, I have to tell you, my husband, he loved trees. In the 5 years leading up to his passing, he planted over 500 trees on our property. So I can totally see why there were trees all around him when he passed. And so I have stories like that constantly being shared in transitional experiences. And what I have come to learn is the transition is exactly what we create, what we want it to be. And the soul knows what's calming and what helps transition. Sometimes I see angels in the transitions, and I see very specific things with angels in the transitions that are helping the soul crossed over. The one thing, the one thread in every experience of the transitions that I have seen and experienced, they're all peaceful. Everything is peaceful, 100%.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes, sometimes loved ones are met right away. One time I had a group reading of a family who had lost a brother, and you could tell some of the members in the group reading weren't quite sure about this. And the brother's telling me that the first loved one that he saw when he transitioned was his dog or a dog. Mm-hmm. And he's showing me this dog, and they're kind of like nodding their head. I said, no, they're telling me this dog belongs to you. And this is what the dog looks like. And they're like, oh, okay. And then he goes on to tell me the name of the dog. And they were like, whoa, and I don't get names a lot. So don't think I'm this medium that gets all these names. It just happens sometimes. But the soul knew, to help connect to his loved ones here, that they just weren't quite, connecting to the information. They needed a little bit more to just get them, on board, I guess you could say, and really trusting and believing. And that's what he showed. And that was very calming. He ended up having this beautiful relationship with the aunt's dog that I, didn't know about until after the reading.
Yeah.
So it's all so amazing, isn't it?
Spirit is everything. I mean, just everything. It's just, there's like, how do you find words to describe something so magnificent? There just aren't enough words to describe it.
I agree.
So with your experience with helping parents heal, we parents, well, first of all, I mean, just as a human being, when we lose our loved ones before their time, and I mean like before old age, or like parents should go first, grandparents should go first, you know what I mean, down the line, right?
Yeah. There's
always the question of why and how can this happen? And when working with helping parents heal, I know that has been a question that I've received often. And I wonder, how does that play out within helping parents heal as well? That has to be a question. Why? How could this happen?
I think there's a lot of different approaches to that, because even not every medium has the same experience or belief system either. Yeah. Some people believe, that there's soul plans and these architect plans all the way down to, the last moment of someone's life. And there's others that don't have that experience. But what I will tell to someone who's asking me that question, obviously I will see what their loved one shares, but it's only what I can gather from the evidence that the loved one is talking about. But there isn't an answer for everything. Even when you talk about these transitions, you can only validate with what's being shown to you or what the information is that's coming forward. And I think that there are still mysteries in life of, why, the big whys. And a lot of times what I find with the children, they are teachers. They are the biggest, littlest teachers in the world. And they have a ripple effect through their passing, through their story, that sometimes can't be seen at that moment. But in a few years to, longer, the ripple effect of the lives that they have touched through their story, through their parents, it just keeps going. Some parents go on to write books, some go on to hold retreats. Some parents have had totally transformative experiences and are mediums today. Yep. So it's really this amazing, amazing ripple effect that I have seen. But it's hard to tell anybody early on in the journey, this is what it is. But a lot of times it gets shown later in life. It's just like, living an experience and not knowing why something didn't work out, and you don't see it until later on, and you have to look at it from a different perspective.
Yep.
But the kids, I mean, they're teaching me. I mean, they're my teachers. They're my greatest teachers all the time. Every time I go into a session, I learn something new that I didn't already understand with mediumship, and how the ability is truly there. The tiniest of souls. Yeah. I mean, connecting at 21 weeks gestation. Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Show me the evidence. That's incredible.
Yeah.
There are no parameters in that sense. The evidence is there. Wow.
Agreed. They are our teachers. Yes. The people the ripple effects, like you said, some people write books, some people recognize their own spirituality and become successful mediums, helping to heal in that way. Some create organizations to help a group of people, like say addiction, addiction recovery services, or helping people understand the addiction and recovery, or maybe overdose, and a little bit more information. It's really beautiful, and it is very difficult to, when it is early, like you said, when it is early, that ripple effect that is coming down the road is we can't even fathom that in the moments. So with your experience, with everything that we've been talking about, with spirit, with the readings, with the passing of children, passing of people prematurely, what is your thought on our purpose here?
It's a great question. And so when you say our purpose, meaning each individual that comes here, or as mediums?
Yeah, our purpose. Okay. Well, or both, as human beings, what is our purpose?
I think it's having this human experience. It's one moment in time. It's one moment in time. And the way that I've been taught and believe from what the spirit world has taught me, including my own spiritual guides, we come here to work on certain emotions. And within those emotions, reoccurring themes are going to take place. They're going to give us different life events that we sometimes choose by free will. Sometimes it's divinely timed. And those experiences help us continue to work on things within our lives of those emotions. I don't believe, nor have I ever been shown with evidence, that it's predetermined how somebody's going to pass. I've never seen that. And when you think about anybody who's lost their life to death by suicide, that is not predetermined. That is not predetermined.
That's
so, when you think about it from like a life's purpose standpoint, it's really to have this human experience in coming here and learning to rise above the human story. You're so much more than Jeffrey. I'm so much more than Britta, but that's my human name, but the soul is so much greater than that. And we're all thrown grief at some point in our lives. Grief isn't just losing a loved one. It could be the loss of a job. It could be the loss of a marriage, a dream,
oh my goodness.
And so everybody will experience it at some point or another. And it's, a lot of times through grief is where growth comes. And that's where you find your tribe and you have the spiritual awakening. And that's why organizations like Helping Parents Heal, that are so uplifting, and just amazing in what they do and what they bring to these parents is absolutely incredible. And those that volunteer in this organization, it's all volunteer. I mean, it's a nonprofit organization. The countless hours that are put in, they do monthly newsletters. Somebody has to organize all the gallery readings and all the talks that happen, all these chapter meetings across, the world. And then they even do conferences. They just announced they're doing a big conference in 2024 at the end of the summer. So much work goes in, but it's the kids, they always talk about it. It's the kids that are making it happen. They're the kids that are opening up the doors. So,
it's so beautiful.
Yeah. It's amazing.
It really is. It really is. Britta, I just want to reach through the screen and give you a hug.
Well, it's so nice to meet you today. I love it. Thank you for having me.
So before we end, what would you like to share with people as final thoughts? And then I want you to talk about where people can find you.
Sure. If there's one thing I wanted to leave anybody with today, I would say vibration is key in everything and anything that we do. We're all energy, and vibration is so important. So even coming to meet a medium and having a session, keeping the vibration up is important, because your loved ones vibrate at such a faster pace than we do, and we have to raise our vibration, and that's where we meet in the middle. But you can also think of vibration as getting things done in life. Where is your thought process? Okay, you're having a really rough week. You're not liking your job. So let's start manifesting. Let's bring up that vibration and let's start envisioning where that job's going to take us. So vibration is just so much ingrained in us. And a lot of times we don't learn about it until much later in life, and how different it could be from that. But also, I would say the final thing is that we never walk alone. We're always walking alongside our loved ones. They're always around us. Our spirit guides are around us, but truly we never walk this journey alone.
Amen to that.
Wonderful. Yes. And you can find me at mediumbritta.com.
mediumbritta.com.
Yes.
Britta, Medium Britta.
That's right.
So again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and
pleasure.
All the listeners.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit. And everybody, I just want to remind you, coming up here on June 16th, Something Super Spiritual is going live on YouTube. So we'll be doing a live weekly show. And Britta is going to be coming on as a guest soon thereafter, the 16th. So get ready. We're going to put our calendars together. And everybody, have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for being here with us. Britta, have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you again for listening to the Something Super Spiritual podcast. If you know someone who would enjoy this episode, please do share it with a friend. For show notes, links, and to purchase a mediumship reading, my website is somethingsuperspiritual.com. You can also easily subscribe and follow the show on your favorite app, sign up for my newsletter for bonus content, and to keep the conversation going, you can easily join the Facebook community. It's all right there at the website, somethingsuperspiritual.com. Signing off for now, namaste.